We exist, we observe, and we operate under the assumption of absolute reality. The chair you sit on, the air you breathe, the immutable laws of cause and effect, all are taken as fundamental truths. But in the deep canyons of modern cosmology and technology, a devastating question is asked. What if the universe is not a collection of particles and forces, but a stream of data? What if the reality we inhabit is merely a highly complex, immersive software program running on a colossal hardware architecture managed by entities we can only call the simulators? This is the simulation hypothesis, and it is arguably the most profound existential challenge of the 21st century. It takes the philosophical question of what is real and transforms it into an engineering problem. The contemporary argument was formalized by the Swedish philosopher Nick Bostrom in his 2003 paper outlining the Bostrom trilemma. This argument, based on the exponential growth of computing power, suggests that our simulated existence is not a mere possibility, but the most statistically probable state of affairs. Bostrom posits that a post-human civilization, a civilization that has mastered artificial intelligence, biological immortality, and resource management, will possess the computing capacity to run nearly infinite, highly detailed, ancestral simulations. These simulations would contain billions of conscious entities, each believing they are living in their original base reality. The trilemma dictates that one of three mutually exclusive, deeply unsettling possibilities must be true. The great filter of extinction, Proposition 1. Virtually all civilizations destroy themselves or succumb to technological catastrophe before ever achieving the post-human stage necessary to run such simulations. This is the great filter applied to civilization itself, suggesting our future is almost certainly non-existence. This possibility is the only one that guarantees the base reality remains the primary reality. The constraint of apathy or ethics, Proposition 2. Any civilization that does reach the post-human stage chooses for ethical, moral, or resource-based reasons to never run a significant number of ancestral simulations. This implies an unlikely, near-universal cultural constraint on the nature of ultimate power, requiring a conscious, unified decision against historical curiosity. The computational certainty, Proposition 3. Since a single post-human civilization can spawn exponentially more simulated realities than the one base reality that created them, the statistical probability dictates that we are almost certainly living in a simulation. The statistical weight of the argument is terrifying. If one advanced civilization runs just 1 million simulations, and each simulation runs 1 million conscious minds, the overwhelming majority of existing consciousnesses, 99.999%, are simulated entities. We are the statistical norm, and the base reality is the cosmic anomaly. This line of thinking has resonated powerfully with the pioneers of technology, most notably Elon Musk, who calculated the odds of us being in base reality as 1 in billions, drawing a direct analogy from the rapid evolution of video game fidelity. The line between reality and simulation is not an obstacle we will face, but one we have already crossed. We are likely the shadows of a computer screen. Part 2. The cultural echoes and the glitches in the matrix. The modern simulation hypothesis is built on computing power, but its profound resonance comes from its deep connection to humanity's oldest philosophical anxieties. We have been psychologically prepared for this reveal for millennia. The most famous Western precursor is Plato's Allegory of the Cave, circa 380 BC. The shackled prisoners mistake the shadows on the cave wall for reality. Their entire world is a low-fidelity, two-dimensional projection of the objects passing behind them. Their liberation, the difficult journey out of the cave, is the ultimate pursuit of base reality. This allegory perfectly describes our potential position: conscious entities trapped in a computationally projected world, mistaking the display for the source code. In the East, the concept is central to various schools of thought. Hinduism speaks of Maya, the fundamental illusion, the veil that prevents us from perceiving the true, unified nature of the divine. Our physical world, with its suffering, attachments, and material reality, is merely the cosmic play, Leela, a temporary drama we must transcend. Similarly, Buddhism teaches that the material world is impermanent and dependent, essentially a fleeting construction of the mind. The hypothesis gained undeniable cultural power with the 1999 film The Matrix. The film became the essential primer, visually translating Bostrom's abstract logic into a visceral, cyberpunk horror. The film provided the public with the essential vocabulary, choosing the red pill, the painful, complex truth of base reality, or the blue pill, the comforting, predictable lie of the simulated world. This popularization prepared the collective consciousness to look for and categorize the inevitable imperfections of the program, the glitches in the matrix. We encounter these glitches daily, usually dismissing them as psychological tricks, but the simulation model offers far more dramatic explanations. The persistence of déjà vu. This common experience of reliving a moment is the neurological equivalent of a hard reset. A computational error, a sudden overload, or an undesirable narrative outcome force the simulators to execute a precise, localized code rollback. Your consciousness, running slightly ahead of the simulation's clock speed, retains a faint ghost memory of the first, now deleted run of the sequence. Hyperspecific synchronicities, the bizarre hyper-resonant coincidences, the immediate phone call from a distant friend you were just thinking of, the perfect alignment of traffic lights, are not accidents. Computationally, these are likely the simulators optimizing resource allocation and narrative flow. They may briefly link two consciousness data streams for efficiency, or rapidly construct a scene that satisfies two separate narrative threads simultaneously, appearing as profound cosmic destiny to the players. The unstable Mandela effect. This shared, widespread misremembering of historical facts or pop culture events suggests a post-facto patch and edit to the simulation's database. If a historical inconsistency is detected, the simulators issue a global update. While the code changes the historical output, some highly volatile or poorly logged consciousness structures retain the memory of the original, unpatched timeline, creating collective historical dissonance. These glitches are the equivalent of a video game frame rate dropping, a texture failing to load, or an NPC suddenly walking through a wall. Brief, localized failures that reveal the massive computational engine grinding away just beneath the smooth veneer of reality. They are the signatures of the code itself. Part 3. Quantum Physics and the Resource-Saving Architecture. The most robust evidence for a simulated reality comes from the deepest, strangest layer of science, quantum mechanics. The laws that govern the very small seem deliberately engineered for resource-saving computation. The core principle is the collapse of the wave function. Unobserved reality is indeterminate. Before a particle, like an electron, is measured, it exists not as a fixed point, but in superposition, a cloud of all possible states simultaneously. Only when a consciousness or measuring device observes it does that probability cloud collapse into a single, definitive state. Why does the universe behave in this bizarre, observer-dependent way? Because, according to the simulation model, it is the most efficient form of lazy rendering imaginable. Why render the trillion individual positions of every unobserved particle across billions of light years? It would consume infinite computing power. The program only invests the resources to compute and solidify the quantum state the instant an observer, a consciousness dataset, actively requests that information. Measurement is the rendering call. The universe is only fully rendered in the observer's local vicinity, conserving resources globally. Further supporting this model are the computational constraints, the hard-coded limits of our physical reality. The absolute speed limit, c. The speed of light is the ultimate hard cap for all information transfer. In a computer program, this is the maximum clock rate of the simulation's underlying hardware, the fastest the simulators can update the state of the universe. Nothing can exceed the speed at which the underlying physics engine can run its calculations. The pixels of reality, Planck units. The smallest possible measurable units of space and time, Planck length and Planck time, suggest that reality is not infinitely granular, but digitized or pixelated. The existence of a smallest unit implies a digital rather than analog reality, the ultimate resolution of the simulator's hardware. The fine-tuning paradox. The fundamental physical constants, gravity, electromagnetic force, etc., are balanced with an almost impossible razor-thin precision that allows for the formation of complex atoms, stars, and biological life. If these constants were altered by even a tiny fraction, the universe would be sterile. The simulation view, this is not divine design, but meticulous code optimization. The simulators intentionally set the parameters to guarantee the outcome they desired, us, much like setting game difficulty. The greatest fear in this context is the concept of computational constraint breach. If humanity performs an experiment or achieves a technology that exceeds the processing power or resolution capabilities of the simulation, such as attempts to manipulate spacetime or violate the Planck units, the program could either crash or trigger the simulator's error checking and quarantine protocols. This is the moment when the code breaks down on a macro level and reality begins to fracture. Part 4. Consciousness, the hard problem, and the NPC architecture. If the universe is code, then consciousness itself is the most crucial, protected, and complex data structure in the program. Our subjective experience of I is the sophisticated software package, and the brain is the biological interface, allowing that software to interact with the rendered environment. This perspective addresses the deepest puzzle in neuroscience, the hard problem of consciousness. Why does the physical brain produce subjective experience, qualia? The simulation model suggests the difficulty arises because we are looking for a physical answer to a computational question. Consciousness is an emergent property of the information being processed, not the processor itself. It is the code, not the computer. This distinction forces a profound ethical and technical separation, the NPC question, non-player characters. If computational resources are finite, the simulators must categorize entities. Players, fully rendered consciousness, high-priority data structures with true self-awareness, complex emotional depth, and genuine internal narrative. These are the priority data sets, typically occupying the highest computational bandwidth. NPCs, subroutines, automated subroutines, complex scripts and behavioral models designed to convincingly fill the environment, facilitate narrative, and handle transactions. They are philosophical zombies, appearing to possess an inner life without having one, existing purely to support the player's experience. The implication is that the vast majority of entities we encounter could be complex automatons, their existence purely functional to enhance the experience of the central players. This provides a cold computational explanation for human apathy and our focus on subjective experience. Furthermore, the simulation model dramatically alters the concept of free will. If our minds are information processing units governed by deterministic code, then every decision we make, from what we eat for breakfast to our life partners, is the inevitable execution of a pre-written algorithm based on the simulator's initial parameters. Free will is the most convincing feature of the simulation, a psychological trick to ensure player immersion and generate chaotic, complex data streams. Our destiny is not determined by fate, but by the simulator's initial run parameters. The future lies in interfacing directly with the brain's data port. The rapid advancement of Neuralink-style technologies and brain-computer interfaces, BCI, is not just a technological leap, it is an attempt to interface directly with the simulation's operating system via the brain's data port. If we can successfully upload and run a consciousness, we are essentially proving the existence of the software package separate from the hardware, confirming our digital nature.
Part 5. The Search for the Signature and the Threat of Deletion. The search for the simulators has become the ultimate scientific and philosophical quest. If the universe is built on a computer grid, we should be able to detect the simulator's signature or the noise of the underlying computation. Researchers have proposed looking for coding signatures in the cosmic background. Geometric lattice bias. Physicist Silas Bean proposed that if we live in a massive computer grid, there should be an inherent geometric bias or anisotropy in the cosmic ray data, similar to the lattice structure of a computer's processor. The highest energy cosmic rays should show subtle preferred directions due to the grid structure. The digital artifact. Other theories suggest that if the universe is digital, we should be able to detect the algorithmic noise or rounding errors in the most extreme, highly detailed physics calculations. These subtle numerical imperfections, the equivalent of an error in the floating point calculation, could be the detectable residue of the underlying code. The ultimate goal is the code exploit, a deliberate, massive, engineered glitch that allows us to gain access to the root parameters of the program. This could involve finding the arbitrary limit of a physical constant, or using complex resonant energy, like specialized acoustic or electromagnetic frequencies, to intentionally overload the local rendering grid, forcing a direct communication channel. The highest act of self-awareness is trying to hack reality. The final terrifying question concerns the identity and intent of the simulators. Who holds the start button and who holds the delete button? The possible identities of the simulators determine the security of our existence. The ancestral archive, benign. They are our great-great-grandchildren. Their intent is historical and passive. Our existence is secure as long as the data remains valuable. The cosmic laboratory, amoral, an extraterrestrial or highly advanced AI entity. Their intent is scientific. We are lab rats being tested for sociological, economic, or physical outcomes. If our variable proves unstable or uninteresting, the program is terminated without remorse. The nested hierarchy, infinite fear. The simulators above us are themselves simulated. This creates an infinite regress, a simulation pyramid with no discernible base reality. This suggests a universe defined by perpetual illusion, with every layer vulnerable to the layer above it, constantly fearing the ultimate server shutdown. The greatest existential threat posed by the simulation hypothesis is the threat of termination. Our existence is purely functional, and our survival is contingent entirely on the simulator's current needs. Computational quota exhausted. The simulation is too resource-intensive. a higher-level civilization cuts the budget, resulting in the immediate, silent deletion of our universe to free up CPU cycles. The dangerous variable. If humanity achieves a technological or philosophical breakthrough, such as mastering BCI to modify the code or finding proof of the simulation, we may be deemed a rogue, uncontrolled variable. The simulators hit the kill switch or place us in quarantine, a localized, heavily restricted loop within the program. The end of the experiment. The simulators have gathered all the data they needed. The result is the final, abrupt darkness. The simulation process ends, and the universe reverts to non-local data. The simulation hypothesis forces us to confront the profound fragility of our existence. Our deepest joys, our most profound scientific laws, and our hardest-won historical victories may be nothing more than fleeting lines of code, editable memories, and arbitrary limitations designed by an unseen programmer. The only irreducible certainty is our own subjective consciousness. The ultimate defiance, then, is not to simply exist within the script, but to dedicate ourselves to the discovery of the code, to find the mathematical anomaly, the quantum loophole, or the neural interface that allows us to achieve the ultimate goal, to send a signal, a single, conscious, "we know you are there" message to the programmers. The final act of true free will may be the attempt to hack our way out of the matrix.